Good morning. Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
All right, listen, I'm not up here to hear me. I've done this before. I know what I'm doing, okay? So, are you all ready to learn a little something about athletic recruiting? That's what you're here for, right? Are you ready? All right, so I know you are, but the person to your left, maybe not so much. They're not a morning person. So just give a little nudge. Give a little nudge, make sure everybody's up on the thing, okay? Because I'm not here to hear myself talk. I'm here for you guys, okay? So, what we're going to talk about today is the athletic recruiting process. I'm going to give you 10 things to consider as you're going through the academic and athletic recruiting process. If you want to play sports in college, you absolutely can, subject to change. And that's going to depend on your ability, it's going to depend on finance, and your flexibility. So we're going to talk about these things. But today, and no offense to Mom over here about physics, but this is not a physics class, okay? You are here to interact and learn about something that you love. Aren't you playing the sport you love? Aren't you playing the sport you love? Yes? Okay. So, if you're playing the sport that you love and you want to pursue that in college, I'm here to teach you and tell you about some ways that you can try to ensure that. Okay? I would like this to be interactive. If you have questions, please ask me. Okay? I will stay afterwards as well if you have any questions. The information I gave you, there's a couple things. The athletes, I gave something. This is not to sell you guys, okay? What this is, though, is just to let you know, and I'm sure you know of services out there. We at Destination College do holistic planning. When I say holistic, we do athletic recruiting, but we also do college planning. Academic planning classes you should be taking in high school, how to put a college list together, essays, applications, interviews, financial aid consulting, everything and anything to do with college. I am a best-selling author. I wrote a book, College, Making the Complicated Easy, and I'm also part of a national group that we're just rolling out tonight, Paying for College 101, which, by the way, parents, it's a free group. You might want to join that. It's Paying for College 101. It's on Facebook. And there's a lot of different, it's a great community where you're going to learn a lot of good stuff about the process, financial and otherwise. So, college planning starts for athletes yesterday. You know, the college calendar is pretty set. For the most part, you don't think you have to do anything right now until the end of junior year, maybe even the beginning of senior year, right? That's what applications do. But for an athlete, everything's accelerated forward. Because, how many of you know somebody who freshman or sophomore year is committed? Right? How do you think that happened? They didn't go look for them. Right? And they're not supposed to be able to talk to those people either, right? That's against the rules. But somehow they got committed anyway. Right? So, depending on your sport, and I played football and lacrosse. I'm a lacrosse ref, have been for 30 years. I don't do too much of that anymore other than tournaments and running some things up in the indoor sports pavilion in Randolph. But I played lacrosse, and lacrosse, especially for women, for girls, the process is so accelerated. They start freshman year on the recruiting process. Okay? For some sports like field hockey, track and field, you might have a little bit longer time and you can go into your junior year potentially. But that doesn't mean that that's when you should start. Okay? There's a communication process and all that, and that's what that handout is, but that's what we're going to talk about a little bit today. I'm going to talk about the 10 things you should know that will hopefully aid you to perform a little bit of a family reality check, okay? I'm going to teach you how to balance and optimize the different athletic, academic, and financial aspects that you might be thinking about. I encourage you to get an honest athletic talent evaluation. There's no doubt you're committed to your sport, as Craig said. And by the way, if you're committed to your sport, you're in the right place. Right? You already know that. So, that doesn't mean, though, that we're all necessarily D1 athletes. Do we understand that as well? Do we also understand that other than the NCAA basketball tournament, which is happening real soon, one of my favorite times of year, that there are a ton of other schools out there? Right? Division II, Division III, 1A, all those types of things. We know that, right? Because they're not D1 does not mean they're lesser schools, academically or athletically. Anybody know who Jerry Rice is? Does anybody know who Jerry Rice is?
Yes.
Okay. One of arguably, probably the best football players ever to play. Anybody know where he went to school?
Mississippi Valley.
No?
Mississippi Valley.
There you go. Who wants to go to Mississippi Valley? Nobody here, right? I don't know, Jerry Rice went there, worked out pretty good for him. Okay? So my point is, you know, if you look at, and football's obvious, and for you that play other sports, I'm going to talk about football and lacrosse and basketball a little bit, only because lacrosse is my wheelhouse, but also football and basketball is revenue-generating sports. You probably have all seen it on TV or watched the NCAAs and all that, so I'm just talking because it's familiar with you. But if you listen to the guys as they do the introduction of the offensive line and the people on offense and defense, half the colleges they went to, you've never heard of. They're not all Alabama and Clemson. But they got to the NFL, which is another whole level of being able to play and ability. So again, the flexibility you can have is going to really help you to optimize your chance to play at a college level. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. I'm hopefully here to answer your questions as well. Okay, I understand it's a little blurry here, but XYZ college or university invited me, my kid, to a camp. Yup, they want them. Anybody hear that before? Guys, dads in the room, we're usually very guilty of that. The water cooler talk, I say, right? Yeah, my son got invited to a camp in Michigan. They want him. No, they don't. They want you to pay for their beach house over the summer. Okay? Now, that doesn't mean that you're not a prospect. You can be a prospect. But before you invest the time and the money into all these camps and showcases, you need to vet the process. Don't, in my opinion, don't just go online and sign up for something without talking to somebody who's organizing the event, the showcase, or the camp. Ask what colleges are attending. Not the list of the ones that have attended in the past. Who cares? You weren't there. Who is going to be there this year? And if they can't answer the question, don't invest. Also, if it's for a specific school, are you going to get evaluated and feedback at the end of the camp or showcase? If the answer is no, don't go. Because if you get evaluated and feedback at the end of the camp or the showcase, you know you've been seen. You're not going to get just a generic, thank you so much for coming, it was great to have you, come back to our next one. Now, I'm not saying all camps are a waste if that's the way they go, because you could get exposure, but in my opinion, you need to be proactive with this process, not reactive. You know, go to these things, invest all this time and all this money to hopefully be found. You have to let them know you're going to be there. You have to let them know you're interested. You have to let them know afterwards they had a great time and you're looking for feedback, and you need to continue to communicate. Communication other than your texting machines that you all have in your pocket is sometimes not the best, right? So you need to communicate via email. There's a lot of recruiting sites, depending on the sport you might be on. That's great, but you have to keep up to date. You have to send emails on a regular basis. Have any of you started a recruiting process in any way, shape, or form yet? Okay. Sometimes you'll send an email, and when I work with students, they say this all the time. I sent out 35 emails, just like you said, and nobody responded. I said, do you think that they're sitting there waiting to hear from you? No. You know how many unsolicited emails they get and videos and all those kind of things? They're not opening those. Now, there's a way to get them to open them. Short, brief, to the point. And by the way, if you're going to get a video done, don't invest tons of money. Any of you kids know Huddle? If you don't know Huddle, learn Huddle. You can do your own video. And by the way, don't send 2, 4, 5, 10 minutes. They're not opening it. I'm going to give you a really nice key right now. You want to increase your open rates if you send a video unsolicited to a coach? Keep it under a minute. And in your email, you say to them, and by the way, coach, attached is a 47-second video. I hope that you have time to review it and provide some feedback. You might not get feedback, but everybody's got a minute, no matter how busy they think they are. I'm going to tell you, I've started doing this probably about 5, 6 years ago, and the open rates of videos has increased dramatically, 20-fold, because everybody's got a minute. If they're interested after that, then you can send more to you. Okay? And also, guys, ladies too, think about the music you put on with these things. right? I mean, I know that right now it's really cool to be like into rap and stuff, but think about the words that are in there, okay? Make sure it represents you well, okay? It may be really cool and what you use to get ready to go out on the field, but make sure it's got the right words in it, okay? Because that's a bad impression to set. Okay, I'm gonna go through the 10 things. Number one, you gotta know where the opportunities are. Already kind of addressed D1, D2, D3. Everybody wants to play D1. I get it. The percentage of people that play football, soccer, basketball in high school and then continue in college is in the single digits. The good news, almost every school in the country has a program. The bad news, you and everybody else want to play. Anybody play soccer here? Okay. Soccer. I was in Ireland not so long ago and took a couple taxis. They couldn't wait. As soon as they find out you're from the States, they want to talk about football, their football, which is soccer, right? All of them told me that their kids were being recruited by American universities. All of them. Okay? So international is a huge thing in soccer. Okay? Now, does that mean you can't play? Absolutely you can play. But you need to understand your level and you need to optimize your opportunities at all these schools. And in the beginning of the process, don't say, I never heard of that school. That school sucks. I'm not going to respond to that. In the beginning, all interest is good interest. I have a player, a football player, who went to a camp at an Ivy League school. And that's what he really wanted. They had never heard of him before. They had no interest. They just invited him. He went. What ended up happening was he went to the camp and somebody said from a school that nobody knew, I'm here to see Jimmy Brown. And the guy goes, oh, checked his roster, it's not on his list. All of a sudden he's like checking out where Jimmy Brown is and now he wants to go where Jimmy Brown is. And guess what? That kid ended up playing at Brown. All interest is good interest. Do not dismiss it. You're not making a decision at this point that you're going to go there. But if somebody shows up, the college coaching business is very transferable. People played together, coached together, went to school together. It's a very tight community. They all know each other. All you need is one coach to say, I'm here to see you, and that can lead to other opportunity. And the way you do that is by when they send something to you, you actually don't dismiss them and you start communicating with them. So exhaust all the opportunities, don't look for D1 only. Number two, be honest about where you stand. And by the way, just so you know, on the seminar evaluation sheets that I gave you parents, if you're interested, I can send you some of these slides, okay? Not a problem. You can just, there's a box in there to click and give me your email, and I'll send you a highlight of this. No problem. It's my pleasure. Okay? Because I didn't hand them out because I don't want you just reading the slides. I want you to hear what I have to say, hopefully. Okay? So anyway, you have to understand, are you a heavy blue chip recruit? If you are a heavy blue chip recruit, you're already being contacted sophomore year by coaches and by colleges. Or your club coach or your high school coach has been contacted about interest in you. If that's not happening, it's not over. You don't have to be a blue chip recruit only to play sports in college. But be realistic about where you are. At that point, you're being invited to the school, not just for a camp, but for an overnight, for an official visit. Very few student athletes reach that point. Most people are recruited in the other buckets, which is a light recruit or you self-recruit. And that's the important thing. 90% of people have to do self-recruiting, and that's what I'm hopefully here to help you do. Okay? So if you want to play sports in college, you need to be able to take this upon yourself, to do yourself, and to initiate interest. Make sense? Number three, understand the number funnel. We're not talking about finance at the moment, but as I just said, and you can't really see these numbers here, but baseball, soccer, basketball, football, all have single-digit single-digit numbers or percentages of kids that play high school to college. Lacrosse, about 17, 18%. And the reason that is so high is because lacrosse is still a growing sport that not every college in the country has. The West is just starting to put programs in, and the South is starting to put more programs in. But from a football, soccer perspective, basketball perspective, it's very difficult for new programs to show up and pop up. Okay, but there's tons of kids that play. Okay, so you got to understand the number funnel and the percent opportunity that you have to play. And again, by being flexible at the different levels, it's going to matter to give you more opportunity. Understand the money funnel. Full rides. You're going to hear full rides from so many people. Oh, he got a full ride. She got a full ride. Total lie. They did not. Okay? You may get a full tuition scholarship. By the way, pretty darn awesome. I'm not trying to diminish that. Okay? But nobody gets a full ride where even their room and board and their books and all those things are paid for. That's total nonsense. Okay? But also, I don't know if you know it. If you don't know, you can go to the NCAA Clearinghouse website. Does anybody know of that? If you don't know that, you should be writing that down. No pens? Shocking. And find out what number of scholarships are applicable to your sport. In lacrosse, they have 12.8. What that means is a whole formula and a whole thing. But if I give you one, I have only 11.8 for the rest of the team. You're probably not getting a full scholarship. Plus also that full scholarship might not cover all tuition. So parents in the room, if money is an object and something you want to think about, which by the way, college is freaking expensive. It'd be an issue for me. I don't care how much money you have. I would understand what that money funnel looks like for that sport. And D1 can give athletic scholarships. D3 can't. They only give merit scholarships, which we're going to talk about in a minute, the importance of academics. Thank you.
Can you repeat about going to the...
I'm sorry?
Can you repeat?
Yes, it's NCAA Clearinghouse website. Now we're going to talk about the part that you don't want to talk about, which is academics. I knew it. He's going to do this to me. I thought we were going to just talk about athletics, right? And this is why. I tell all my students that I work with, whether it's a talk or I work with them one-on-one or it's a group thing that I do with them, there's two things you need to do to improve your chances of being recruited. Number one, and you're in the right place for it, is continue to build upon your ability, your strength that's applicable, your functionality training for your sport so you stay healthy, because if you're not on the field or on the court, you're not going to be able to be seen. Which means you also need to listen to your body. I'm sure Craig talks to you about this. You need to stretch, and you also need to rest. I'm sure you all feel like you're supermen and women right now. Okay, I remember those days too. It was a while ago, but I remember. Okay, but you need to rest your body. So many kids that I talk to after I see them later on, stress fractures, all kinds of things that creep up on you from overtraining. Listen to what the people are telling you here. Taking a week off to give your body a rest is not going to put you at a deficit. So be smart. But then the second thing you need to do is you need to be the best academic student that you can be. Because you don't want a coach needing to be in a position where they have to ask for a favor for admissions. They don't get many favors. There are some schools that admissions doesn't like the athletic part because they bend the rules to get them in. Have you ever heard of that happening before? I had a student, female student, playing a sport. She came to me as a sophomore, and she wanted to take the SAT in June. And I said, why are you taking the SAT in June? You're not ready for that. She's like, oh, UPenn told me all I need to do is get a 550 on each subject, and I'm good. Now, for those of you who don't know, it's out of 800 points. UPenn is an Ivy League school. You have a 0.05% chance of getting in to UPenn on regular terms. But because she was a high recruit, 550, 1100 SAT, so far below the average, but they would take her. Not everybody that goes to Princeton, to Yale, to Notre Dame, to BC, to Duke, is going to be your 4-point whatever student with a 1600 SAT, believe me. But in your instance, to help you to not make the admission process an issue, you need to be the best academic student you can be, whatever that means. Don't think a difference between a C+ and a B doesn't matter. Don't do the math and say, you know, freshman year I kind of screwed it up a little bit, but even if I get straight A's the rest of the time, my GPA is only going to be a 3.1. That's not how colleges look at you. You think you're the only one that had a challenge freshman or sophomore year transitioning to high school work? That happens all the time. There are colleges that will omit your freshman year. There are colleges that will count your junior year double when they calculate your GPA. There are schools that will take your first semester, first marking period of senior year and count it and work it in as if it's a whole year when they calculate your GPA. These people have done this before. They know that you peak and grow and mature at different levels. So I'm just here to tell you, you need to take your athletic mentality and apply it to academics as best you can. It may not be as much fun for some of you, and I get that. But to make sure, if you want to play sports in college, what you can do to help yourself best is put that same effort into your academics, and don't think whatever you're doing now doesn't matter or won't matter, because it will. This is something I'm going to just touch on briefly, but it's something called the academic index. Has anybody ever heard of that? Okay, the academic index, you can look at that, Mom, if you want to write that down too, academic index. And you can look that up. So colleges, especially at the D1 level, use what they call an academic index. So essentially, you know, the NCAA, you know, watches things pretty closely, and they need to have a minimum team GPA. So, you ever wonder when you see these high-end college football teams, you have a whole bunch of guys on the sideline that look like, I could plow over that guy. He couldn't tackle me if he tried. Can you understand what I'm saying? Like when you see the sidelines, you're like, what? How did he get on the team? They're GPA lifters, right? They're not playing. They may show up at practice, but they're there to lift the numbers. Okay? So for every person that they bring in that's a 2.4, 2.7, 2.8, 3.0, they might need to bring in 3 other kids at a 4.0, 3.8, 3.9 to offset. If you are that 3.7, but also have some athletic ability because you're here, game on. You have a great opportunity to play. So you have to understand that colleges have an academic requirement and rules that they have to adhere to. You don't want to be the favor, as I said before, so be the best you could possibly be academically, and it's a combination of SAT, ACT scores, GPA, and subject test scores, which we'll talk about in a minute. Okay? Can it be exposure? Sure. Is it guaranteed exposure? Definitely not. The best way is to go and actually communicate on your own directly. Is it a little extra work from you? Yes, it is. But you create a boilerplate template, which we have, of emails that you go out to these people with, and you don't blind copy everybody so everybody gets the same one. You have to personalize it. Okay? And then you send a steady stream. But it's really important to do that. And you talk to people, coaches, say, by the way, these 15 coaches, I'm going to be at this event on these days. I'm on this team. I'm number 25. And when I get my schedule, I'm going to share it with you. And then when you get the schedule, you send another one. Say, by the way, I just got my schedule. Below's the schedule, field, time, whatever. And then afterwards, I hope you had a great time at the event. I know I did. My team first, had a great showing. We did this, and I personally had boom. Hope you were able to see me. Love some feedback. Again, you notice what I'm asking for? I'm asking for on a regular basis here. Craig's fingers are like getting numb there.
Yeah.
You guys are such a great team. So, again, ask for feedback. The reason I'm telling you to ask for feedback is because coaches want you to be coachable. You're all great athletes, I'm sure. You have no idea what you're in for college. College is a different level. And by the way, the NFL is stupid, ridiculous, crazy. I have a very, very dear friend of mine who at the time, and I know this was a while ago, but was the #1 recruit quarterback out of high school. He was in Florida. He ended up going to the University of Tennessee. Thought he was all that. Went there, he said the first day he walked on the field, he said, I'm in the wrong place. #1 recruit in the country at quarterback position. And he said, I'm in the wrong place. And by the way, University of Tennessee around Peyton Manning time, just to give you an idea. Okay? And before Peyton Manning, Tennessee was right? They're not the annual powerhouse that like Alabama would be, right? My point is, again, being recruited is an awesome thing, but you also have to make sure that you have an ability to actually play. Because you don't necessarily, and look, some people, I have a kid that played goalie in Mendham and ended up playing for Syracuse lacrosse, okay? Never saw the field. Not one, it didn't matter if they were up 18-1, because he was like the 4th string. But he just wanted to be part of Syracuse. He was okay with it. That's rare, man. All the work that you're doing in here is not to sit on the bench. And right now, most of you are probably starters on your teams, your superstars on your teams. God bless you, awesome. But you're going to need to earn your spot. Make sure you can compete for your spot at the next level. You don't want to get up at 5 o'clock practices and watch 8 hours of film and do all the things that everybody else is doing, never to see the field. And maybe if you do, and if you do just to be part of Notre Dame, whatever, God bless you, that's awesome. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. But most people don't say, oh God, I hope I can make this team so I can sit on the bench. So understand your ability to play. And the self-recruiting part is really important to try to understand that when you're balancing your opportunities and what schools you're thinking about. Eligibility, I'm just going to talk quick. That NCAA clearinghouse I gave you before is going to tell you all that stuff. All of you, I'm sure, are going to be fine from an eligibility standpoint. You know, the schools in New Jersey are very, very good. Your minimum graduation requirements are going to set you up 95% of the time to be okay. But you want to make sure, do I need that 3rd year of a language? Do I have to take science 3 years? What level of math? What's the minimum SAT, ACT I need to get? You should know those things, especially if it's D1. Okay, and that, again, when you're on the field and you're on the court, do any of you go out there hoping for the minimum? No, right? I mean, if you do, why the heck are you here, right? Don't do it academically. I can't say that enough, okay? Please. Give yourself the best option. All right, I already talked about this. This is one of the things I will send, but it's the different levels of a recruit that you can be, what they call tagged category. Admissions, again, I would not solely look at admissions and go, oh my gosh, they have like a 7% acceptance rate. There's no way I'm going to get in there. There's still ways to do it, depending on all these things, and this is one of the slides I'll send you. Want to talk briefly about, this is about finance, okay? And I don't know if you can see this. It says, my net worth, do you mean after taxes or after I pay for your education? See, only parents laugh at that because they get it. Guys and ladies, college is expensive, dude. And I know nowadays, you know, with this, everything's Venmo and Zelle and all this other, now it's like not even real money, it's like paper money, credit cards that you get from your parents. But you know, like, somebody mysteriously pays that stuff off, you know that, right? If you ever want to find out, I have a very good friend of mine who I helped his son get recruited to run track. And he was kind of fluffing off a little bit, thinking that, you know, he was all that, whatever, which he was really good. But it kind of aggravated my friend, so, because he wasn't thinking he was getting it. So what happened was, one Saturday morning, he woke him up at 11:30, because yes, he was still sleeping. Brought him downstairs, and he had $5,000 of singles thrown on the kitchen floor. You can imagine what that looks like. Right? So the kid's like, what is this? And he says, count it. He goes, what? He goes, count it and let me know when you're done. the way. It took him 3 hours to get all the money up, all singles. And he slammed the last part on the table and he said, 5,000, what's the point? And my friend said, the point is the school you want to go to is 18 times that. Think about how long it would take you just to count it, never mind how long it took me to earn it. College is expensive. To help your parents out athletically by potentially getting a scholarship, to help your parents out academically, which is more likely, to get an academic scholarship, which, by the way, is annually renewable, but probably much easier to maintain. Because you all know that athletic scholarships are annually renewable, right? I hope. Like, there's no guarantee. You get $17,000 the first year, you know, God forbid, twist a knee, or they have another recruit that's in Iowa that's better than you. You're not guaranteed that $17,000 anymore. Whereas the academic money you get, as long as you have a minimum GPA or maintain of 2.7, 3.0, 3.2, whatever it might be, it's yours for 4 years. It's yours to lose. Doesn't matter what other people are doing. It's all on you. I would like that better because that's ownership on me. Okay? But the point is, again, help your parents out by being the best at, because again, your parents' job is not just to pay for it. Because your job right now is to be a student and an athlete, a student athlete. So do it the right way. The college list drives everything. I mentioned the Paying for College 101 Facebook group. Just this morning, we kicked off a national campaign. We're doing a 5-day challenge on how to build the perfect college list. By the way, parents, you can still join it. It's a Facebook group on there. It's for free. More than welcome to do that. Happy to have you. I'm one of the hosts, so if you're sick of me, then maybe you don't want to do that. But the list drives your ability to get admitted, the academic success that you be looking for, the athletic opportunity, financial reality, and by the way, student happiness. Everybody that I work with thinks the goal is to get into college. That's not the goal. That's 20% of the goal. The other 80% is to make sure it's the right academic, social, environmental, geographic, athletic if it applies, and financial fit for you and your family. 51% of college freshmen drop out, transfer. 51%. Graduation rates, when you see them online, College Board or whatever, are based on 6 years, not 4. Department of Education doesn't usually tell you that, but recently they have to claim it now. I work with so many of my students I work with come back to me after they already started high school. Thanksgiving is my busiest time of past students coming back to me because they just started school as freshmen and they're freaking out. It was not what they thought it was going to be. Transitions are not easy in life all the time. Think about it. Anybody going to be a senior next year or a senior now? Okay. You're like Big Kahuna on campus right now, right? Oh, he's a senior. I can't talk to him. Right? And then from an athletic perspective, they're like, he's the man. When you go to college, they don't care. You're a freshman. You have to start all over. Right? You're going to succeed. You're going to thrive. And you're going to kick ass. But you have to understand it's not a direct line. Understand that, prepare for that, and then optimize your opportunity to succeed when you go wherever it is that you're going to go. But understand that by talking to the student athletes, talking to people that are at those schools, and not just get all enamored with, oh my God, I'm done, I got into wherever. No, that's when it starts. Okay? So college list and how you put that together is really, really important. Some common mistakes. I'm going to send this to you as well, so you don't need to write any of this stuff down, but not matching the right child to the right school. I have this thing I wrote about in my book. I do a lot of talks about it. I do a whole hour talk on it. Bumper sticker envy. Anybody know what that is? So you've all seen like college bumper stickers on cars, right? Okay. Have you ever sat behind the car in like traffic or at a light and go, this school sucks? Right? Come on, you all have done it. Don't lie. I know you have. Okay, you don't know that that school sucks. You have no idea. I'm telling you, college is not high school. Every class you take is AP or above. It's hard. Can you do it? Absolutely. But the question is, how hard do you want it to be? How much of a balance in your athletic, academic, and social life do you want? You want to be challenged, but you don't want to be overwhelmed. That's my thought. That's my opinion. You getting that diploma from what XYZ school that supposedly you think everybody cares so much about, but having a 2.7 GPA, you're not going to be high on the recruiting list. You're not going to be for a job. You're not going to be high on the internship list. You ever heard of that, like being a big fish in a small pond? Overused, right? But it kind of works. So make sure it's not can you do it, it's will you excel as you're doing it. How will it position you? That's what's important. Look at the whole picture. Other things on here, I'm sorry, I can't really myself even see it, but starting too late. I already told you about that. As an athlete especially, 8th, 9th grade, freshman year, not too early. That's when you need to be starting. Do you need to do it in a panic? Absolutely not. But that's why you start 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th grade, so that way it's not a panic and you don't look like me when you get older. That was a joke. Gray hair, got it? Okay. Next time, I think we need to have you like run them around or something, like a boot camp or something. Yeah. All right. Not having enough backup choices. Gotta have backups. Plan B. Okay? I usually say people should apply to anywhere between 6 and 10 schools. Being guided by erroneous assumptions, that happens all the time. Parents, from a financial perspective, don't listen to anybody that tells you not to file the financial aid forms. They don't know what they're talking about. If they work for you, fire them. I don't care if you make $5 million a year, you need to file the financial aid forms. Because there's a lot of things attached to that, including merit money potentially. So it's not a waste of time. Also, mismatching athletics versus academics and financials. You gotta make sure that it's a fit for everything and every aspect of your family. So I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna show you, and by the way, this is not on the Facebook challenge I'm doing this week. So this is like special stuff. This is my proprietary system that I use. Now, has any of you here heard of Naviance before? You know what Naviance is? Okay. So Naviance is a system that the schools use. Guidance usually gives to you as usually a sophomore or junior. And it'll look at all the schools that are out there, and thank you. And it will show you where you are in this scattergram thing when you put your numbers in as to whether or not it's a reach, match, safety kind of thing, and what your potential is. If you're green, hopefully you're good. If you're red, not so much. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't apply. And I'm not really a big fan of Naviance, because to be honest with you, it's better than nothing, but it doesn't take a lot of personal stuff, including finance and honors programs and majors and all that stuff into account. It also, in my opinion, kind of perpetuates what I call the herding mentality, because everybody just applies to the same schools. And then the other thing is, you know, it doesn't take into account anything relative to affordability and those kind of things. So I have my own proprietary system I've been using for 15 years. So basically, I just want to take you through real quick, just to show you, and hopefully you'll learn a little bit from this. There are 2,000 four-year, no, there's 4,000 four-year schools. So for those of you who looked it up on Google or something, I'm aware of that. But there's 2,000 that you're going to really honestly probably most likely think of. So there's 2,000 four-year schools, 1,650 of them meet basic standards, and that is what a typical student looks like that can apply to and hopefully get into those types of schools. Then we have competitive, 250, and those are those characteristics. We have selective, 75, and then we have the most selective, which obviously is your IB, sub-IB, those kind of things. And that's what a student looks like that would most likely go there. Now, when you look at this, you can easily say, because I know you're doing it, all right, where am I? What range am I? Okay, so I can, all right, so if I'm here, I can definitely get into all those. And I can just, I don't need those. That's not necessarily how it works, okay? It's not linear, okay? Just like when you look up things on College Board, even around Naviance, just because you're in the range doesn't mean you're going to get accepted. Okay, are we all clear on that part? Okay, but at least here, if you're here and all the schools you're applying to are here, we may have a problem. And that's what most people do. Most people put a list together based on the names of schools that they know. Uncle said you should go here. Jimmy went there, whatever. I saw him on the NCAA basketball tournament. They were all in half red and white. That looked pretty cool, right? And there's nothing wrong with that, but you got to make sure that they are the right match. So Anybody ever heard of University of Buffalo? Okay. Does anybody know in basketball what they did last year? Does anybody remember? Okay, they were a very low seed, made the tournament though, and beat Arizona, which was the number 2 seed in their bracket. Now, nobody, when they looked at the bracket, almost nobody, because last year was messed up. I don't know if you remember, like UMBC beat Virginia, okay, and Loyola, Chicago made it to like the final, the I don't know, Elite 8 or whatever, which was like, who the heck are these people, right? My point is this. Nobody on paper thought that UMBC was going to beat Virginia or Buffalo was going to beat Arizona, but they did. And I actually did a little video about it, because usually twice a week I do videos, 1-minute informational videos on my Instagram. It's the college guy, the number 4 you, if you want to follow me, okay? It's not selling you stuff, it's giving you information and giving you some key stuff and things to think about and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, and I talked about March Madness, the fact that obviously nobody thought that those teams were going to beat Arizona or Virginia, but they did. So obviously the takeaway there is they obviously taught them something. At this supposed lesser school, they obviously put it together in a way that they were able to perform and beat a very high-end school. So again, hopefully that will accentuate the point that every year there are Cinderellas. Don't omit that from your college process, academically or athletically. Now, I'm not going through this whole thing, so don't get worried. But this is how admissions people review your application when you apply. They take your unweighted GPA. Everybody hear me? Unweighted GPA, not weighted. In your core 5 classes, math, English, science, language, history. Forget health and gym, that you got 100, man, boost my GPA, nobody cares. SAT, they take math, critical reading, put it together, divide it by 2 to come up with a range. ACT, if you're familiar, is on a 36-point scale. You take your composite, and then there's some other stuff. But the bottom line is, I take my students through this, and I determine and I assign, I don't know if you can see here, but it's 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, most of my clients are between a 3 and a 6, probably, somewhere up here. I work with all kinds, and I do have people. I have kids that have gone to Princeton, Yale, Stanford, Columbia, all that stuff. But it's not predominantly what I do. I work with more this middle range part. And what I do is I assign a number academically so you can understand where you are relative to schools you're interested in. Then I take non-academic things, like non-academic achievement, there's a definition here, school-related activities, talent. Guess what talent is? Your athletics. But talent is only something that factors into the process if you are a recruited athlete. So if you're taking a sport, and maybe I don't know if I need to play, like, coach changed and my team changed and 2 of my buddies are, but I don't want it to look bad on my college app if I drop out my last year. Nobody cares. I mean, if you're not having fun doing it, don't play. Now, that's probably not going to happen to most of you here because you love your sport and hopefully you're excelling in your sport. But I mean, even your friends that say, "Oh, I don't want to love. I'm playing soccer for 3 years. I want to play the 4th because it's going to look bad on my college application." No, they don't do that. Believe if you think they're taking that much time to evaluate, Jimmy dropped out his 4th year. What a tool. We don't want him. It's not what they do. Okay. Anyway. Here, I assign a number 2. But the point of this whole thing is I have every school in the country numerically ranked. 14 is the highest, and it goes down to a 3. And what I do from a selectivity and admissibility perspective is I figure out and show you what is a reach, match, and a safety. So just as an example, let's say you are an academic 4 and a non-academic 4. That's an 8, right? You guys can figure that out, I hope, right? I know it's Sunday, but that's easy math. If that's the case, 8 goes here, 9, 10, 11, 7, 6, 5, and then we start overlaying and filling in the schools that I have in this whole database and show where you are. So as an example, if you're an 8 and you're interested in Bucknell, Bucknell is an 11. If it's early decision you might be doing, it could be a 10. Make sense? If you're an 8 and you're interested in the University of Pittsburgh, that's a 9. If you're interested in the honors program in Pittsburgh, that's a 12, not on your list. Doesn't mean you shouldn't apply, but it at least gives you some range. So everybody talks about reaches, matches, safeties. How do you know? This is how you know. And this is where parents, as I was talking about kids too, but 6 to 10 schools. Usually what I recommend are 2 here, 2 reaches, 6 matches, 2 safeties. I always go by, not because I'm a negative person, I'm actually an extremely positive, upbeat person, but I always go by the worst case scenario first. Because I don't want any of my students, and you shouldn't be going through the process either, thinking, I worked this hard for this. There are so many great schools out there, but you gotta find them. Okay? If your worst case scenario is set, then you can alter those numbers a little bit, okay? But I'm just giving you an idea of what I do for the most part and how to try to make sense of your college list to make sure you're on the right track.
You factor geography into that?
Yes, absolutely. The question is, does geography? So, I'm going to tell you right now, the more flexible you are geography-wise, the more ability you're going to be able to play, get accepted, and potentially get money. It's just a fact. Okay? So, now, that being said, I understand that these kids are like, oh, cool. See, Mom, I can go to California. That's not what I said. Okay? Now, there's reasons to go geographically diverse places and distant places, but that doesn't mean it's a free ride to go surf. Okay? But yes, the more flexible you are geographically, because look, at the end of the day, we are very blessed in a way, minus our terrible weather of where we live, because there's so many colleges in the area. Like, so for you to start seeing schools, it's easy. You don't have to drive too far. You guys can go to Lafayette and Lehigh and Moravian and Muhlenberg and Rutgers, like you see big school, small school, public school, private school, city school, rural school, go to Philadelphia, right? It's easy, right? But so is everybody else in this area. And that's what I meant about the herding mentality and why I don't necessarily always love Namians is that, again, so many people just want to apply to the same schools. And at the end of the day, they're not taking 38 kids at one school. It's not happening. Now, it doesn't mean you shouldn't apply, but you should, and it doesn't mean you're not going to get in. But you should have alternatives. And the more geographically flexible you are, within reason, sometimes the better. You can make something that's a reach maybe come into the match. You can make something a match come into the safety category. So hopefully I answered your question. All right, components of a success. I'm definitely going to be sending this to you for those of you who are interested. So you don't, again, write this down, but visit schools when it works for you. You guys are busy, and I know that. I really appreciate you being here today. Hopefully you got something helpful out of this stuff, okay? I'm thrilled to be here as well, but I'm glad you made time for this. But be careful. I mean, you got to visit schools when you can. The summer's fine. Don't listen to anybody that tells you you can't see a school over the summer because nobody's there. That's a total lie. It's not true. The distance, the layout, the geographic aspect of things, and by the way, athletes are at school almost 12 months a year now. There's also students that are there because they screwed up and they're making up for it, or because they're double majoring, or they're taking a really hard class because they don't want to have to take it when they have a full load. You can find kids to talk to. Before you actually decide to go, yes, then visit when they're in session. But as an initial visit, go whenever works for you, and summer is fine. But be careful spending a lot of money on camps and showcases unless you have the list of questions that I was kind of alluding to before to make sure you pre-qualify it and make sure it's worthwhile. Because again, even though it's only 75 bucks or 125 bucks, you travel the whole day that you're doing it, maybe an overnight meals, before you know it, you're spending $500, $800. Well, you're not, your parents are. Okay, so be smart about that. Match your students' interest, personality, academic, and athletic ability to school. I did talk to you about that. Create a standardized testing plan and ensure it matches the requirements of the school. Bottom line is this. People ask me all the time, when do I need to be concerned about that? As a sophomore, you should absolutely be taking the PSAT. Even if guidance tells you you don't need to, even if your school says you don't have to, you should absolutely be taking the PSAT sophomore year, October. Doesn't hurt, it's a practice, nobody's going to see it, just do it. You do it again junior year. Depending on the kind of student you are and what level math you're in, if you're finishing math, Algebra 2, end of sophomore year, you are ready technically to rock and roll to take a test, if you want to. You don't need to, but technically you would be ready, and I would still get prep and all that stuff, but one of the top things coaches are going to ask you if you're recruited is, what are your scores? They're going to want them early because they want to know if they're wasting their time or if there's something that they can work with. Okay? So you should be aware of that and try to take the standardized test as early as you can, but also when you're ready. Just like when you walk on the field, the court, and you walk in here, you do it when you're prepared. You don't just show up. Make sure you're prepared to really do as well as you possibly can. Create and hone the list to make sure you have the right amount of reaches, badges, safeties. Talk about that. Parents, project the cost before you apply. Right now, there's what they call EFC calculators all over the place. I like them, but at the same time, if you enter it's garbage in, garbage out. If you put the wrong information in, you can get the wrong information back. So just make sure that you're making sense, and if the number looks too good to be true, definitely talk to somebody, okay? Just to make sure it's legit. Create an athletic recruiting marketing plan. Duh, that's why we're here, right? Ignore the bumper sticker envy talk, whatever. I talked to you about that. And identify admission strategies, meaning early action, early decision, rolling and all that. Do you guys know or do you understand what that is? Like early decision, early decision is you apply usually by November 1st. But if you're accepted, you gotta go. It's a contract. You're signing a contract, your parents are signing a contract that says, hey, you take my son, you take my daughter, they're gone. The only way out of it is financial, but believe me, you do not want to be on the wrong end of that and say last minute, oh, I thought we were getting money, we can't do this. So just like that early read I talked about that you can do academically, you can also do that, sit down with admissions and financial aid and find out and get an early read financially as well to make sure you don't want to be in the Porsche dealership if you should be somewhere else. Okay? Very, very important. Last thing, I have a handout, I gave the service offerings, but I have a special offer for you folks. And I have it up here, I'm going to give it to you. I did not give you this one, but I will. So, I understand and realize that the college process can be pretty overwhelming and daunting. That's why I wrote the book with the title, Complicated, Making the Complicated Easy, right? I also understand that college is really darn expensive, which I've already alluded to several times. And I also understand that not everybody has $2,000, $5,000. There are people in New York City that charge $15,000, which is absurd to do what I do because they're no better than I am. I guarantee it, but you know, it's what the market could bear. And I wouldn't do that, and that's why I have my business the way I do it. I do it very reasonable to be, you know, help people that were in my situation when I grew up. But what I'm doing here, and actually Brent is helping me with this a little bit, and I have a couple other resources as well. We're creating what we're calling Athletic Advantage subscription service. Now, anybody have Netflix here? Duh. Come on, all you guys should be, hello, yeah, me, I watch it every day, and I tell Mom I have no time to do my homework. Yeah. Okay. Subscription service is something where you pay on a monthly basis, and obviously then you get stuff, and you get access to stuff. So we're in the process of creating it now. It's going to include a monthly newsletter with key tips, timing reminders, and key things that you need to think about in a given month based on freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior year. It's also going to include what we're calling office hours once a month, where you can call into, you'll have to get invited, but you come into a webinar that we invite you to, and you can, it's a Q&A. It's basically there just to answer your questions, make sure you're on the right path, make sure that you're, get, the pat on the back that you're doing the right stuff, or stop doing things that you're not. It's also going to include some webinars on key topics, not just by me, but by other experts that we're going to bring in, students who have played sport to share their process, experts, coaches, all that kind of stuff to share with you. And we are normally offering it, and again, it's a list of things here, but we normally offering it at $19.99 a month, but especially just for the MAID clients, for people who attended here, we're offering it $14.99 a month. Really very insignificant amount of money to get tremendous access to a whole lot of stuff, okay? So, on the evaluation forms, parents, there's a box. If you're interested, when it's ready, we'll contact you. If not, No problem, no obligation, no problem, we're not going anywhere, you can see us online, go to my website and all that kind of stuff, no problem. But I just wanted to let you know, you don't necessarily need to be spending thousands and thousands of dollars to get some guidance on here. And I think really to be successful in this process, you want to make sure that you have the right team assembled. It's just like on the field and just like on the court. So if you can get access, I wanted to make it, Brent wanted to make it so it's really reasonable and something that you can easily access that, you know, you probably spend more at Playa Bowls than Qdoba. You do, I know you do. All right, can we maybe with the lights or something, because I'm done. And a couple of you like, big time. I'd like to answer any questions if you have them. I'm happy if there's anything at all from anything I said that wasn't clear, or you want to ask me, I'm happy to entertain anything at all relative to the process.